Alright, so last thing to do before we stick the motor back in is it had these, this is upside down, had these grease cups in it, and what I am going to do is I'm going to fill these with grease. I don't have any felts to stick on top of these springs, but these springs also don't fit through the grease holes there, so I'm going to put a lump of my synthetic grease. Super Lube is what I'm using. It's full synthetic. In these cups in the bottom, and I guess I want to figure out a way to, yeah, alright, I don't know how to get this to fill in there. Well, we'll drop our spring in, so if somebody wants to put the felt in there later, they can. I've already oiled into these holes, and I'm just going to put them in hand tight. So it turns out modern grease is so much better than the old Singer grease that the teeniest bit when it gets in there is going to be very, very adequate for what's happening. And as long as you have some modern grease and a little oil in there once in a while, it will last forever. That's one of the things with a lot of this mechanical stuff. All of these things like your car, and early on when they were developing better electric motors and stuff, a lot of the progress that they made, especially with cars and other engines, was not so much in the manufacturing, but was in getting better oils and greases for them. So that's fully oiled, got a bit of grease in it. We're gonna pull this machine over here, and I'm actually gonna lay this on its side here because we have to fish the cord down through the body of the machine and out this hole. So I'm just gonna poke it's got this curve, I'm gonna poke it in there with the curve facing toward the hole. Spy on that, and then there we go, get it to pop out the bottom here, and then that fiber tube is the extra protection for the cord inside the body of the machine. And then you can see the rotor of the motor is turning as it engages with the clutch on the, there we go. And now when I rotate the hand wheel, this motor turns. So that's progress. And now we just have to take, oh, and I got it spot on. The screw that retains the motor, you have to just make sure that the motor is rotated so that the hole in the end of the motor lines up with the screw hole in the front, which it seems to be lined up. So will the thread start, or do I need to turn the motor ever so slightly? There we go. All right, that screw has started. Once I get the screw in, I'll move the camera and we'll finish assembling the rest of the pieces onto this. Let's finish putting the loose parts back on this, and I'm gonna put the bed on last because I took the bed off, had 4 screws. I found our oiling reservoir in here, but it'll be easier to set the rest of the things kind of in place before we get the bed on. So we got our bobbin case here, and that slips in place. There is a 2 notches in this bracket. The back notch is where the needle should line up. Yeah. The back notch is where the needle goes. The front notch is where this little spring finger goes to hold the bobbin case in place. I'll rotate the machine so that the hook is underneath here, and then this bracket can slide into place. It drops in and rotates so that this end slides into a slot, and then it's got the 2, we can turn this around, it's got the 2 screw holes for these tiny retainer screws for that ring. So first of all, get our come on. Alright, there's got to be a clever way to do this. Okay. There. My screwdriver is lining up the first hole, and then the second hole I can wiggle around and rotate the screw until it catches the thread, and then put it most of the way in. And then we'll put our second screw in to retain this. Of course, these are very tiny screws, so be careful you do not cross thread them, because then you'll chew up the tops or damage the threads. That's that. We'll apply a bit of oil around the edge there on that retainer, and since I have this open, I will apply oil to all of these moving areas before we get too far in. The oil reservoir should work fine for that eventually, but still pre-oil everything. And I'm going to slip our feed dogs on. And they've got this large flathead screw. Take a and those feed dogs are a machined fit, so there's not really any adjustment for where they land. So they just have to turn out in the correct location when you tighten the screw. And let's see, this, that. All right. I'm actually at the point where I need to put the bed plate in, because as easy as it was to put this stuff in without the bed plate on, now we're at the things that have to fit onto the bed plate. Bed plate sits in place, and I did remove the stitch length adjuster before I realized that the bed plate would lift right over it. So when we put that back on, I'll have to show how to adjust that. Found some screws. This machine was short a few screws for the bed plate, but all the screws for the bed plate are also the same as needle plate screws on Singers of this time period, which is, of course, very handy, because being short screws for the bed plate was a simple solution when I could grab needle plate screws. So we'll just get our two spots on the front here taken care of, and then we'll turn it around and I'll get the spots on the back sorted out. Since I'm here, I will throw the needle plate in, and then if you remember, that oil reservoir was right here next to the bobbin area, so there's a nice fill hole for it to fill it up with oil whenever you're ready to oil the machine. One thing is, this machine does fold down in the cabinet, so if that reservoir is full of oil when you fold it in, then it's just going to dump the oil in the bottom of the machine, and you will have to fill the reservoir the next time you lift the machine out of the cabinet to use it. So this is a, nice design if you are always keeping your machine out and level, or if it's portable or something and is always upright. But if you fold it into the cabinet, then suddenly you have an oil spill everywhere. So, all right, let me turn this around. Okay. Hung the front off here, so we'll just put our retainer screw in that and then tighten the top screw. This cover is like a lot of Singer covers, where it's got the retainer screw here on the bottom that was later replaced with a thumb nut, and then the top screw that only has to be loosened for the slot to fit on it. Get our presser bar and our presser bar tension screw in. Make sure we oil that as it goes in. So I did put a lot of the stuff in solvent and degreaser and stuff, so it's important to apply fresh oil as it's getting reassembled. Now, the back side here, there's a spot. There's two more screw holes for the bed plate, and so this machine was missing two screws from this bed plate retainer setup, and it's got this bracket here, which interacts with the, which is for cord management for the lamp. So the lamp comes through and goes over here to the bracket, and it's kind of goofy. There's a hole here for the bracket to get screwed all the way through, but I didn't get a long screw. This machine didn't have one, so I'm going to put a plain screw that's level on this here, and then I'll put that in place, and then this other hole is just threaded into the bed plate, and it uses the standard length screw to hold this bracket down. So that is the way that I'm going to assemble that. You can see I popped the cover on the back of the motor as well while we were doing stuff. And it's time to get our... Oh, I did put the lamp together upside down. Look at that. I rotated it and held it this way. It goes in like so, with the cord coming off the back side, so I need to rotate this. No problem, of course. We just have to take our two retainer screws out and flip this 180 degrees. All right. Just like so. And with our screws popped back in, now the chain hangs the correct direction. Alright, chain hangs the correct direction now. We've got this locking hook here, so it has to go through the lamp, and you'll see that it's got flats on the side. This hole is squared on the side to hold this from rotating, so when you tighten this screw, that piece isn't rotating. But we're going to begin threading this in place, and then we put our pin on the front, and it wiggles to get the retainer in there, and then as you tighten this, that retainer pulls up, and nope, that retainer is backwards. I have that backwards. This should be pointing back. Alright, so our hook is pointing backwards here. It's through the square hole on the back of the lamp. The retainer nut has gotten the threads started, and then it gets put in with the hook facing backwards, and then when the pin goes on the front here, you tighten this, and that hook pulls up and holds the bracket on. There. We can just there, and that's on there snug. You can see our spot where the cover goes on. So if we put our bulb in, this is a big fat bulb, so the cover won't fit in. I'm going to replace this with a plain skinny bulb so that I can slip that cover on over it, but that will be a last thing we do, I think. And then as this piece, which is a leftover belt guide from belt treadle machines, just guides the cord for the lamp down around toward the folding area of the socket. So, alright. I'm going to just set our stitch length. In place here. Is this turning? That is not turning well. I guess I'm going to put some more oil and penetrating fluid all over it. And so I feel like I should be able to just push down and get it to turn, but we'll make sure and oil that a whole bunch before we try it again. Just pop our cover on for the bobbin case area, which I feel like these springs are a little bent and maybe could be tightened up, but I don't necessarily want to bend them too far, because this doesn't have to slide as, like, this is just flapping in the wind there, but our presser foot in place. Oh, that's what I've got our thread cutter. Slip that on before we put the presser foot on. There we go. Throw the presser foot on, and put our needle clamp back on this. I'm just gonna drop that stitch length dial on and put it in place, and then we'll see about checking our stitch length once we've got it sewing. Because this is marked and it's supposed to be stitches per inch, I believe. Yeah. Alright, well, we'll experiment with that further when I get a chance, and after the oil is soaked into it for a bit.